and welcome to Default Assault, where we take on everything by default. I'm your host, Demosthenes, and with me, as always, is our Force-sensitive co-host, Mr. Kyle Nash. How's it going?
I sense a disturbance. We've actually done an intro this week, like we do every week. Let's do it.
Is that a disturbance in the Force, or everything going well with the Force?
Listen, it could be both. It depends entirely on who you ask, and that's actually very appropriate response to the opinions of what we're going to talk about tonight.
Very true. Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, is out, and by God, it's gotten quite a divisive response from its fans. Funny enough, when I walk out of normal screenings of Star Wars, at least I've seen every single Star Wars in theaters from the time of the special editions. People always came out excited, yelling, full of animation, even during the prequels. With this one, and it's probably, mind you, it's probably just, my personal experience in that particular audience, in that particular theater. I get it. But dead silence coming out of this theater. And this one girl who was next to me, she, when asked what she thought of the film, she's like, yeah, I enjoyed it. It really makes you think. And I like thinking.
Right. One thing this movie did not make me do was think. Now, I'll grant, in my theater experience, which was actually just a few hours ago, people actually clapped at the end of it, but I don't know why. It's not to say the movie was bad. We'll get into that later, but just to compare notes.
So we'll be diving into our thoughts of The Last Jedi, and we'll be talking spoilers in a few minutes. We'll give our overall thoughts, but what we're really after is the question of whether The Last Jedi is a remake. A lot of people going in had the fear that just like The Force Awakens was a retread of A New Hope, that The Last Jedi would be a similar retread of The Empire Strikes Back. Is it? Yes and no, and in sometimes strange ways. We'll get into more specifics later on, but before that, Kyle, since you literally just got out of the movie, what are your thoughts on The Last Jedi?
So listen, when it comes to The Last Jedi, specifics to your remake question, I'll even start there. People said the same thing about The Force Awakens. And in both cases, I would say flat out, no, it's not a remake, but they did borrow some stuff without question. There are certain things that in both movies, certainly much fewer in Episode 8, much fewer in The Last Jedi than The Force Awakens. And in the case of Force Awakens, there should be more because they were trying to get an audience to buy back in. Disney was actually scared for some stupid reason about the concept of bringing these movies back to life and weren't taking very many risks. Now, with The Last Jedi, there was fewer callbacks, I would say, even compared to Force Awakens, but they're there. But overall, with this movie, this is one of those where there were moments where I felt like they were trying for something and it didn't land. You've heard me make references to that in Rogue One, actually, in similar fashion. But I think there's some moments in this movie that are good and some that just frankly aren't. And I think there's at least two moments where I was like, oh, come on, really? But, we'll get into
two.
Yeah, just two that made me react that intense. There's one particular character in there who I think they're instead of the name that the character in question possesses, I'm just going to start calling that character Plot Device, and we'll move from there.
I can see why it's divisive, and we'll be addressing some of those issues. I don't have as much hate or vitriol against the film as many do. Yes, certainly it has problems, and there are many things that just made me do the Captain Picard facepalm. But is it exactly? Thank you, Kyle, for so wonderfully demonstrating that.
How often do I do that to you with some of your jokes on this show? Bird.
I'll get you back.
I know you.
The power of editing, my friend. So, but does it have its problems? Yes, it has many problems, and some of them nitpick, some of them very blatant. Particularly I would like to say some side quest nature of some of the some of the story threads did drive me crazy. But overall, I think I can point out some of the best aspects right now. I loved Mark Hamill's performance.
Oh yeah.
Mark Hamill was great. I think that some of the characters that were lacking in The Force Awakens got beefed up a little bit in this movie. There are some characters I like better in this movie, and
vast improvement from
yeah.
this film.
But yet, on the other hand, there are some characters I liked in The Force Awakens, which I feel got the short end of the lightsaber in this one. So, visually speaking, the film is probably the second prettiest behind Empire.
Oh wow!
I love the visuals. I love, especially during some of the training sequences with the sun in the background and so forth. I thought that the cinematography of this film was very well done. In fact, I would even go as far to say that. Not since the original trilogy has a Star Wars film kind of recaptured the mystical wonder that surrounds the idea of the Force better than this film. It kind of tapped into that mythology of the Force rather than the I mean, everybody can agree the antiseptic scientific midichlorian version.
Well, way to set the bar low there, Chief. But yeah, no, I felt good about all the spiritual stuff that they had in place there too. Listen, maybe Rey was way advanced a Force user even still in this movie, but at least they were consistent that she could pull power out of her butt. But yeah, I agree with you on that. The Force and spiritual side of the Jedi / Sith was very well touched on. I thought I followed it well.
So overall, just to, if you haven't seen the film, go see it. I assume if you're watching this video, you've probably already seen or are planning to see it. We will be diving into very specifics. I would probably say I think the movie is above average. I wouldn't say I don't even think I like it better than The Force Awakens. I think The Force Awakens is an overall stronger film. What do you think? Do you like it better than Force Awakens?
Kali, the only reason why, in my opinion, that Force Awakens is air quotes better isn't because it tried to do more entertaining stuff. I just felt like there were fewer things to focus on. There was a lot of it felt like kind of like watching an episode of Game of Thrones without any of the backstory really to lead in to do it. There's just threads everywhere. And to try to organize it, to me, listen, I followed it, but you were just trying to do a lot of stuff in this movie. And as long as it felt like you still ran out of time. So,
All right, we're jumping into spoilers because I have a response to that.
Spoilers, bitches. Spoilers.
Well, yes, The Force Awakens was much more in the spirit of A New Hope. If you draw the comparisons between the two films, yes, they are very, very blatant, and they're there. But on the other hand, it also gives it a more streamlined, more of a traditional approach. The Last Jedi, to its credit, it wasn't as close to The Empire or any of the other films as Force Awakens was to New Hope. But in many ways, it felt, watching this movie, after as I'm going through, I'm thinking to myself, this is one film. It feels like they're trying to do a kind of, and I'm not the only one who has said this, come to find out, but it feels like there's a mini trilogy inside this one movie.
Oh, that's definitely a good point there. I mean, I could see where you go with that.
First of all, it's the longest Star Wars film. Now, I don't mind long films, but this film in particular, there are 2 points where it made me notice the length, and to its detriment. Number one, the side quest with Finn and the new character Rose to that casino planet. I can't remember its name. I'm just going to call it Canto Crap. They go to Canto Crap.
Can we call it Royale?
No, because that's a much better movie, and I'm not going to disparage the name of Casino Royale with freaking Canto Crap, where they go, and I'm going to say this right now, they go and they have this entire section where they have this PSA about saving the race horse. And
it's the ground in this state, but keep going.
There are children in these stables, little slave children, which you see getting beat up. And their main objective is to save the racehorses and leave these little children behind.
I don't know that I'd go that far, but listen, you're spot on. And listen, we talked in production. We were end up having to talk about Rose. Can we be honest? Rose's introduction got me really excited about what she was going to be in this film, and I just assumed she'd be an afterthought, if not just right out killed off nobly, and we can move on and be like, yo, that was funny how the nerdy engineer chick shocked Finn, right? That shit was hilarious. Because to be honest, that was a great scene. I enjoyed that damn thoroughly. And when he came to and he's all like, where are we going? I'm like, I'm taking you to the brig, mother. My sister died for this shit. It was awesome. And then the side quest started and ruined it all for me. By the end of the film, I could have backhanded Rose without a single thought.
It's not. I mean, everything about this side quest was terrible, and it was an injustice to the character of Finn, in my opinion. Hell, even the beginning of it, when Maz Kanata shows up through that hologram, it felt like you were getting your mission for a video game.
It kind of did, actually, but I have to admit, fitting Maz in the way they did, I thought was a cute idea. If you're not going to have her be a full-on character, so to speak, in the movie.
My second big issue is that the film felt like it came to a natural climax when it came to Rey and Snoke and Kylo Ren on the battlecruiser. After that fight, I felt like the movie was pretty much over at that point. But then I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, from all the press and everything, there's one big scene that still hasn't happened yet, and then the movie dives into another 30 to 40 minute long scene at the end. If you're talking about tone, if you're talking about narrative flow, this movie is it feels like you're on Big Thunder Mountain. Lots of starts and stops. You're going up various lift hills.
Except Thunder Mountain is way faster.
Way faster, and dare I say, more fun.
I mean, you're not wrong, but burn.
Well, at the very least, after you're done with Thunder Mountain, it doesn't decide to die and fade away.
Well, that's a good point too. But hey, when I'm done with Thunder Mountain, I want to go again.
I think we can both agree that Luke Skywalker was, I mean, at least Mark Hamill's performance of Luke was fantastic. I understand some of the fans' gripes with some of the turns that they took with him.
There's only one I got. I'm going to say you could take it from there. And
go for it.
For me, it starts at the end. He does whole badass Force illusion thing, which was amazing. And then someone and his cloak blows away. Horribly done. Horribly done. No. Okay. If that's the way you wanted to go, which is lame as anyway. I mean, this is a guy that turned down Darth Vader. The only death dumber than this is Boba Fett's. Okay. Can we be clear on that? And hey. No.
You know, I went back and forth in my mind as to whether Han Solo's death was the spectacular death we all hoped for him and so forth. And I understood. I can easily I have an easier time getting behind what they were trying to do with that as opposed to this, especially because they already had fake outs. I mean, he projected himself there. He didn't get cut in half. He got stabbed in the chest and he was perfectly fine and so forth. So already had that fake out, and then they followed it up by, oh, well, he did all that, didn't die, but he just dies. So, I mean, are you saying that his entire thing, the entire point of getting in Force Awakens, let's go find Luke Skywalker, he's the key to all this, he's the hope, he's gone off to find this Jedi temple, which they never bring up because apparently they decided to drop like half the plot threads from a Force Awakens. He just comes back to serve as a holographic distraction so 20 people can escape, and then he dies on this planet.
I mean, listen, at least mention, like, all the Force illusion stuff he did, like, exhausted all the midichlorians in his. No, I'm kidding. To this point, though, you mentioned, like, they do mention the temple there where he's training other Jedi. I don't. I
No,
assume,
no. That's different. That's a different temple. In A Force Awakens, specifically Han Solo says that it has been said that Luke disappeared looking for the oldest Jedi temple.
I see.
And apparently, at least as far as the books allude to, that tree that he tries to burn down is like this sacred Jedi tree, and that this temple must have been on this island or so forth. Here's the thing: when anybody gets in the argument, oh, it's in the books, I don't give a shit about the books. If they're give me the story in the freaking movie. I'm not going to read an encyclopedia or any other. I'm not going to go into hours and hours of diving into a different medium just so I can get an ounce so I can get an ounce of story to fill in the plot hole that these stupid filmmakers dug themselves.
It's already in the longest goddamn Jedi film, longest goddamn Star Wars film, and you still didn't give me this information? No, that's a you problem.
With all that being said, it's not a deal breaker because I really liked Mark Hamill in the role. I think he did very well, and if anything, it's kind of a shame that, unless they say later that, oh, he just transported himself somewhere else, he didn't really die or whatever, they'll have to come up with a BS excuse.
Like I said, that's the only real problem I have with Luke in the movie. There were some other things that perhaps were just, in my opinion, missed opportunities that didn't land as they should have. But no, that's the one where I'm like, no, you, which leads me to BB-8, but I digress.
What? What about the Darth BB-8?
Okay, that's dumb as hell, but again, they're selling more toys. Fine, whatever. What the can BB-8 not do? Like, seriously, like this is Captain Plot Device. Okay. The whole thing where he opens the movie and he headbutts the panel to make Poe's stuff work. Okay, I could get past that.
I mean, R2-D2 has done stupid things.
Correct. Before. But when this motherfucker comes up out of the damn ATST, no, bridge too far for me. That's granted, it didn't bother me enough for me to truly flip a table over, but I'm like, come on, dude. Can you find somebody else other than BB-8 to save the fucking day right now?
Yeah, that reminded me of some of the worst parts of like Attack of the Clones with C-3PO and switching the bodies with the other robots and stuff. It was it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, I heard people cheering during that scene.
Right.
Probably the same people that have their own little BB-8 robots at home, which they talk to.
I know that there are going to be some people that will gripe about some of the levity in this movie. But I don't feel like, listen, if you're gonna stick to the religion of Star Wars and be pissed at any comedy that's attempted to be thrown in, your pardon expression, I've already lost the argument. I'm not going to change you over on faith. However, you have to acknowledge every bit of humor that's thrown in is done with something that the character might actually do. The open of the movie shouted right out, Poe's talking schmack with Hux. Yes, I'm holding for General Hux, please, blah, 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 blah. And they have that whole exchange, which I know frustrated some Star Wars fans. But
that's a nitpick as far as I'm concerned. I thought that was pretty funny.
Correct. It was funny. And again, the lead is, if they're into the religion of Star Wars that much, I've already lost them. I don't care.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, that's comedy based out of a character moment.
Yes. Poe would do that.
It wasn't Jar Jar Binks getting his tongue caught in a fucking...
Right. It wasn't slapstick.
The Empire Strikes Back was a kind of a jokey film. Go back and watch it. I mean, during like dramatic moments, C-3PO is like bouncing around with missing parts and yelling at R2-D2. I mean, all the Star Wars, I mean, at least the main storyline films have their jokey moments, and I don't feel that this movie went too far. In the matter of fact, I thought that was my big fear with the little freaking porgs. That they would either be intruding on the film with comedy just to sell toys, because let's just face it, they were there just to sell toys. It's not like Luke, raised a battle-hungry army of porgs to go after the Empire.
That'd be interesting, though. Can you imagine a group of them taking down an AT-AT? Hell yeah. I said AT-AT. Deal with it, nerds.
And he thought the Ewoks were bad.
Trouble with tribbles. See, that's who should be pissed off is Star Trek fans, because they're essentially tribbles that talk, that don't talk, but have mouth voices.
Okay, but yeah, I think the only parts where the comedy felt a little forced and excessive was in the plot thread that in itself felt forced and excessive, and that was on the Fifth Element cruise ship planet of Canto Crap or whatever it's called. Because everything about that felt excessive. And although I do, in a way, appreciate the fact that, that they didn't succeed in their own way, it unfortunately made it all seem even more pointless than it felt.
I'm about to say the same damn thing.
Let's jump into another positive. And I'm going to talk about Rey and Kylo Ren in this, because I felt, especially with Rey in the first film, now a lot of people liked her more than I did. I'm going to say this straight up. I felt she was a little wooden in the first film. I felt that she was the kind of character who really did no wrong. And that element kind of goes into this movie a little bit too. But I felt like, to put it bluntly, with her putting her hair down, almost like it was a metaphor for her character kind of letting her hair down and actually developing a little bit more. I liked her more in this film than I did in the previous film. Same goes for Kylo Ren. I thought that both characters were far more interesting in this film, and the dynamic that they had between the two was kind of the core of the picture. Those two characters and Luke as the reluctant mediator in a way. Those three are the core of the picture, the heart of the picture, and the most intriguing aspects of the whole film.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would even say, listen, overall, the execution of that whole thing was pretty strong. The whole force connection concept is something that would be, in my opinion at least, I could be completely wrong, seems to me like something that would be completely difficult to execute. You can make it hokey, real stupid easy. And yet, I felt like they did a strong job. They even threw in a comical moment in there that could have even potentially ruined it, but instead rather kind of made it a bit more real, in my opinion. And all that was great. I feel like when they actually met each other in person, it wasn't bad. I just kind of liked it when they were farther apart better. Now granted, the fight scene they have where they're working together was
the highlight of the film.
I loved that shit. But some of it was, and what they did with Snoke and how that went down, that was great. It was, you like that? You could tell what they were trying to do there, and I'm like, oh look, we're going to be smooth, but make it just dumb enough for the audience to know what's going on, and make Snoke come off as, I was hoping you were going to catch Snoke, by the way, thank you for that. Make Snoke come off as egotistical enough to really be tricked by it like he was. Or maybe he realizes that he's supposed to die for Kylo Ren to reach his potential. I don't know. It can be done a whole lot of different ways. But think the
Sith are that self-sacrificing?
No, I think there's kind of a Danny Glover from Lethal Weapon element to Snoke too. I'm getting too old for this shit, But and of course, I'm sure that'll be debated. That's not really what I think's going on. I'm just trying to find some ways fanboys could talk the way around it. But let's be honest, they dumbed it down so the audience could figure out the hell was going on. Okay.
Snope. Why do you keep calling him Snope? There's got to be a reason.
Because he's Smeagol, and see, listen, when it comes to that character, if you look really closely at them, do you feel like if like Professor Snape from Harry Potter and Smeagol from Lord of the Rings had sex, that would be the baby?
If somebody punched him hard in the face, that'd probably be the end result.
Listen, Smeagol had to go through some shit, dude. I'm just saying.
Join me, and together we will find the precious.
Whoa, that is tight work by you.
Yes, thank you.
But where I kind of felt like that all started to fall flat was when Kylo Ren was like, join me. Listen, I love that he's not a little emo bitch. like he was in Force Awakens. Sure, he beats up his helmet against the elevator door, and that's a real growth moment for him, I think. But instead of just slashing the shit out of the hull of his ship and it being an obvious tantrum, you know.
You see, you bring up the one aspect that leads me down the path of whether or not it's a remake. Now, I would not say that it is a straight up remake. I would say it's very much in the spirit of Empire Strikes Back, and even more so, it's a combination of Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. The film starts off with the second act of Empire Strikes Back, jumps into the third act of Return of the Jedi, and then ends with the first act of Empire Strikes Back with Hoth. They do enough. Now, it's not as blatant, to its credit, as I said before, it's not as blatant as Force Awakens was with A New Hope.
Right.
There are a lot of parallel scenes between Last Jedi and Empire and Return of the Jedi. Some very specific. I mean, if you look at the overall plot thread, take a step back, and Rey is training with a hermit Jedi, while the remaining heroes are on the run from the Empire throughout the whole film. The film begins with the Empire, finding the First Order and so forth, and the Resistance. Starts with the First Order finding the Resistance, and they're on the run. They're trying to escape. They're able to get one small little victory, so the one ship can get away from the planet. That's the beginning of that's the escape from Hoth from Empire Strikes Back. You have Rey find a Dark Force cave, and she goes down in there and ends up seeing a reflection of herself. There are so many, from the larger picture to the smaller picture, mirrors, or as George Lucas would say, poetry, where it rhymes with the other films. But what it does better than Force Awakens is that it throws in enough new little twists here to kind of keep you on guard. But then it reverts back to those mirrors. That scene that you just described is a great example. You set up the ending of Return of the Jedi. The Dark Force Master is trying to antagonize the two into killing each other. Oh, but there's a twist. They end up joining sides and fighting off the guards, even though the Dark Force Master's apprentice kills the Master, just like the end of Return of the Jedi. But they're doing enough stuff that's new. Okay, what's going to happen here? Are they going to team up? Are they going to are they going to form something different? Is the story going to go in a new direction? No. Let's stop again and go back to join me, and we will be, we'll rule the galaxy like husband and wife.
He doesn't go that crazy. Oh, yeah, no. Right. That's right. Listen, I don't know which way Darth Vader swings, but that's incest. At any rate, no. But here, you're close on a lot of things. I think it's safe enough to call it homage rather than just a straight up remake. I'm with you on that.
I would call it lazy, but
I would call it safe rather than lazy. But what I'll say to that is this: any Star Wars Jedi Force user Sith centric main character is going to have their battle with the Force as part of their development. So it's not as much. Now, granted, hey, listen, the Dark Force cave, I got nothing for you. That is definitely the same shit, in my opinion. But where I can't fault the film is that it took that journey, is because you saw, is she dark? Is she not? There's this other Jedi, it's getting involved. And then there's the Sith, and it's the draw and all that. You're going to have that with any Force using main character entity in the Star Wars universe. I don't really think you can escape that.
But you can do it so much. You can do it differently and more, take us on a newer journey down this path. Not every character is going to have the exact same outcomes or the exact same development of that journey. Yeah, I mean, the film has genuine surprises.
Right.
And I want it to follow through on those surprises, and every single time it feels like it introduces something that is going to shake things up legitimately. it reverts back to the tried and true. You're very right. Safe is perhaps the more appropriate word. In fact, I would even argue that there are surprises, genuine surprises in there, despite the film's safe intentions.
That's a damn good point by you. It's safe, but still throws enough surprise in to be good. So if you like those surprises, what I'm going to tell you, Demos, is hope that enough people did to keep them moving that shit forward.
Well, I mean, the positive thing that I can say is, at the very least, nobody has to worry that Episode 9 is going to be a remake of Return of the Jedi, because they've already done this shit. What else are they going to do? They're not going to be remaking The Phantom Menace. So at the very least...
They can't have Admiral Akbar saying it's a track. God damn it.
At the very least, I mean, the biggest positive and the biggest new hope of this trilogy is that that Episode 9 is going to tell its own story. They should have simplified it with this. With Last Jedi, overall, they should have simplified it. The Empire Strikes Back. What sets that film apart from the rest of the Star Wars films?
Empire Striking Back?
There's one there. I mean, there are many elements that separate it, but like one of the most striking for me, and one of the reasons that I like it more as a smaller personal story, is the fact that outside of that first actual battle scene, the rest of the movie is about these characters. They don't have armies. They don't have anything else. There are two threads going on. And I feel that the side thread, the second of two side threads, was about Poe and Finn doing something on their own. I think it would have been stronger. Seeing those two interact was a lot of fun in The Force Awakens. It would have been a lot better here. They're stronger characters. Instead, they throw in Rose, who is very... I dare I say underdeveloped, doesn't really have a very strong character presence.
Missed opportunity. I'm sorry. I'm happy that she's underdeveloped, but that's not the problem. They tried to force her into stuff. It's not her lack of development. This was supposed to be the SJW comic relief, in my opinion, and it just flopped. Now, I loved her open. You got a female engineer in itself handling a demographic thing and diversity that's not there. Oh, she happens to be Asian. Great. And they're interacting, and it was a genuine new appearance and spin on a character. And again, the scene where she shocked Finn was friggin' great. But then it went on.
She's a weak character, and I mean, it generally, the fact that her thread is overlong and at the end of the day kind of pointless, and you can even make that argument. The most specific thing you can say about it is that this entire plot thread is distracting.
Yes.
It makes it worse, and she is by far the biggest victim of that thread.
Correct. I completely agree with that.
So at the end of the day, even though I do not consider it a remake. It is not a remake of Empire. It does borrow heavily from Empire and Return of the Jedi. I don't think that can be argued. Now, you think that, I think it's to a heavier degree than you do.
Yeah, I would say it's homage. You're saying it's more than that.
I'm saying it's more than that. I mean, an homage itself cannot carry a story. And for this, I felt like it carried the story.
If you say so.
And that's more my take. I mean, where do you draw the line? I mean, homage is something that pays reverence to, but it doesn't rely on it for structure, for it to stand on its own. I like the fact that it tried to do a few different things. I like the fact that it tried to go the unexpected routes. At the end of the day, the biggest disappointment was that it reverted back to the safe routes whenever it went down this path. And that for me is why I feel like it's disappointing, but overall, for everything it did right, it's above average.
Yeah, I think disappointing is strong, but I would just say, it's okay.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you're able to agree with me that although Force Awakens is better, it definitely kicks Rogue One's ass, because
oscillate upon my gluteus maximus, sir.
I don't think my lips are that big, but nevertheless.
Now you're just trying to flatter the former offensive line.
So with that being said, that's it for today's episode of Default Assault. Stay tuned for our Christmas specials coming up this weekend. And what do you guys think? Do you feel like Last Jedi was incredible, disappointing, divisive? Certainly divisive. But at the very least, do you feel that it was a little bit more of a remake of the Empire and possibly Return of the Jedi than we did? Or do you think that similarity, homage, or lazy writing? Let us know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at Default Hilarity, on Facebook, Hilarity by Default, and hilaritybydefault.com for weekly movie reviews and other fun stuff. Kyle, where can we find you?
Go to Hilarity by Default. It's a good time, folks. Do yourself a favor. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter at the SOTG, and of course on Facebook as the student of the game. By the time this airs, I would have already covered the Cure Bowl here in Orlando, Florida, and I'm going to be covering the Camping World and Citrus Bowls as well on NGSCsports.com for NGSC Sports. Of course, check them out on Facebook as NGSC Sports, on Twitter at NGSCsports.com. Good times all the way around there. Demos, may the force be with you.
Yes, and the force will be with you always in a life that's hilarious by default.